So you might be wondering, you're kind of caught up in between whether you should build a bungalow or you should be building a storage house, because you heard from elsewhere that it's really expensive to build a storage house, which I really do understand that it's in some cases it's true, and in other cases it might not be the case. Sometimes it might be cheaper for you to build a storage house. Also considering that when you build a storage house, you save a lot of ground space. You still have more space in your compound, and well, we will find out in this video as I demystify and break down the materials that you need to build a storage house and their quantities. Then you in your perspective, based on your pocket, you should be able to tell whether it's affordable or it's not affordable to build a storage house. My job is to break it down for you so you can tell for yourself. Well, today we are going to be discussing the cost of building a 3-bedroom storage house. Okay, this house specifically has a footprint of 6.5 meters by 7.5 meters. That's approximately the size of a parking lot of 3 cars. Okay, if you are to visualize that practically. So it's really a small house. You cannot categorize it as big houses, but it's really functional. On the ground floor, we have only 1 bedroom, which is approximately 3.2 meters by 3.4 meters. And then we have a living room. The living room, the dining, and the kitchen all are in open plan. Okay, so it kind of gives you this illusion that the house is actually a big house because most of the spaces are being shared. And of course, if the person staying in bedroom 1 wants to take a shower, there is privacy provided. You see that if there are people in the living room, they won't be able to notice that someone in bedroom 1 is actually going to take a shower. So there's a bit of privacy there. Okay. You also notice that under the stair there is a small store that is under the stair, if you notice. Then the kitchen is open plan, but of course that's just the inside kitchen. We added also an outside kitchen, but remember at the point of doing these the bills of quantities that we are about to discuss, we had not yet added the outside kitchen, so it's not going to be included in the bills of quantities. So what we are discussing basically is the main house without the outside kitchen as you see it there. Then if we go to then when we go to the first floor, okay, where there is a master bedroom, you notice the master bedroom is self-contained and has everything within it. Then there is another small bedroom bedroom 2, that can actually accommodate 2 beds. Of course, it would be also save you a lot of space if you used a decker bed. There are quite a number of nice looking decker beds that are on the market, so you could still have more space in that bedroom if you happen to use a decker bed. And then it has a large balcony. The balcony is actually measuring about 3 meters by about by 3.4. Okay, 3.4 meters by about 3 meters. Okay, which is really big enough. And if you notice from the elevations and from the artistic impressions, I love the balcony. The balcony is really big enough. The balcony gives a lot of space for socializing and enjoying that cool breeze of the evenings. Okay, so anyway, what we are here today is not so much to discuss the plan. We are here to discuss the cost of building this very house. Okay, so without wasting a lot of time, let's go into it. Before we go into the details of the costs of building this house, it takes quite a lot to come up with all these videos. Okay, if you believe these videos are really of help to you, I would request that you give this video a thumbs up button and also subscribe to the channel. Any support is really highly appreciated. Okay, so going on with the material schedule, you can see that we have columns and we have rows. The first column is for the number of the item. Okay, so we've given them numbers 1, 2, 3 forwards, so that we can easily refer to them. Okay, then the second column we have item. Item is basically the item, the materials that we are actually talking about. And then in the third column we have the unit. The unit is what measure of quantity that we use. For example, for cement we quantify it in terms of bags. For timber we can quantify it in terms of pieces. For maybe DPM we can quantify it in terms of linear meters. And then in the fourth column we have quantity. Quantity is the number. We have quantity, then we have rate, then we have the amount, and then we have the last column is the accumulated total. The very last column, you notice that we are going to keep adding, we are going to keep getting the total of all the things that we have actually discussed so far. So by the time we reach the last item, we should be having the total of all those items under the accumulated total column. So let's go into this. The very first item is setting out of the house. So there we do not need a lot. We just need timber and strings. You know, as you can see on the screen, the total for that is going to be 145,000 shillings. Then going down to foundation works up to the slab level. That includes the foundations, the plinth wall, and the slab as well. And then in the second part, we have the foundation works up to the slab level. Okay, so as you see, we are going to need some excavation works. We are going to need some coarse aggregates. We need steel bars, lake sand. I will not be saying them specifically because I am projecting them on the screen so that you can see them. Okay. So you can see that our foundation up to the slab level is actually going to cost us a total of 8.4 million. So in our accumulated total column, you have the 8.4 million plus what we gathered from the first part, which makes the accumulated total at 8.55 million. All this is in Uganda shillings, okay? Then we have the third item, which is the ground beam and the slab. The ground beam on the slab as well, the ground beam on the slab, we are going to need coarse aggregates. You'll need BRC. BRC is British reinforcement cage. We put it on the ground. On the ground floor, we don't usually use reinforcement bars. We just use the BRC. It might be quite expensive and quite unnecessary to use iron bars in the ground floor slab. Unless you're in areas that are really swampy and the ground, you've not done sufficient compaction below the ground slab. Okay, that's when you have to use reinforcement bars. But if you've done really good compaction, you put your maram, you compacted it, you put hardcore, you compacted it, you only need BRC. So we have the ground floor beam on the slab taking us to a total of 7.93 million. So if we accumulate that and add what we collected from the previous, the total becomes 16 million so far. Going forward, we have the ground floor columns and the block work. That is going to, I'm not going to be discussing all that. The total is going to take us to 8.8 million, as you can see on the screen. And then the accumulated total of everything you've done so far goes to 35 million, 25.3 million. Remember, I'm actually only discussing the materials. We've not yet included the labor, we've not yet included delivery of these materials to site. Sometimes it might be inclusive of the cost, sometimes it might not be inclusive of the cost. But what we should measure on this time is really the column that has quantity. The quantities will remain constant, but prices can actually change depending on who is supplying you the materials. So as we go to the first floor beam and slab, you can see the slab is quite expensive. The slab is going to cost us 12.637 million, which brings us to accumulated total of 37.9 million so far. Okay. Then you go to the first floor columns and the block work. In this breakdown, we are using hollow blocks, the hollow blocks of 150 millimeters. Okay. The reason why we are using hollow blocks, is because we are trying to avoid the formwork for timber. The formwork for timber that can really quite be expensive, and also hollow blocks also contribute to the strength of the building. So you'll find us having small columns and small beams because part of the load of the building is actually being taken up by hollow blocks as opposed to clay bricks. Clay bricks are already heavy themselves and not as strong as hollow blocks. So clay bricks already exert a lot of load on the structure. So we require large-sized structure members like the columns, beams, and slabs, so as to also be able to carry on the load of the bricks. All in all, hollow blocks are much better than clay bricks when it comes to building a storey building. Of course, that might not be the case with when you're building a bungalow. A bungalow, if you choose to go for hollow blocks, you better go for the smaller ones of 125 millimeters. Okay, but when you're doing a story building, hollow blocks are the way to go. I'm saying this from seasoned experience, that hollow blocks will give you much better, they'll give you much better they'll give you much more benefits than using clay bricks. When we go to the ring beam, we are combining the ring beam with the tank slab as well. So that's why you see the cost is a bit higher than it should be. So the ring beam and the tank slab are going to cost about roughly 4.5 million, and that brings our cumulative total to 50 million. And then we go to the parapet welding. The parapet welding is basically that wall that exceeds, that goes past the roof, because what we are having in this design is actually a flat roof, which means the wall is actually going past the roof, and then we have the roof slanting at a very small gradient to drain the roof off, to drain water off the roof, and drops it at the back of the house. Okay, so the parapeting welding is costing a total of 790,000, which brings our total to 50 million point 8. Okay, then the roofing. You might notice that this roofing is really way cheaper than most roofing, because the method we've gone for here is flat roof. We have it costing 2.79 million, which brings our cumulative total to 53.6 million, as you can see on the screen. Then we go to the ceiling. The ceiling is going to cost about 1.7 million, bringing the total to 55.3. Then the plastering. Plastering, this is for both internal and external plastering. Okay, it's going to cost, materials are going to cost 9.6 million, which brings our accumulated total so far of the materials we've spent to 64.9 million. Okay. Then we have painting, as you can see on the screen, painting costing us 2.4 million, and tiling also costing us 7.3 million. The total of everything so far bring us to 74.66 million. Okay. Of course, some of these things might have to change. We might have considered the ordinary type of tiles, and then maybe you at the point of construction might say, no, I actually want Italian tiles, which are actually more expensive than the tiles that we get from China, which might bring your totals to different than what we have here. But this is basically for just decent materials and having a decent house and something you can count on without really being expensive. Then we go to plumbing works. Basically, plumbing works include the wash hand basins, the toilet seaters, all those things, the inspection chambers, the manholes, the plumbing fittings, the sinks, and all that, which brings our total to 6.884 million, and bring our total to 81 million so far. Okay, so far. Then we have electrical installations, we have conduits, you have electrical installations totaling up to 3.1 million, bringing our cumulative total to 84 million. Then we have doors, we have windows, we have glasses, all those giving the total as you see on the screen. So by the time we finish all the windows and doors, and also fitting the glass as well, the total comes to 95,164,800 shillings so far. Okay, so you include the septic tank, the soak pit, the septic tank at around 3 million, the soak pit at around 800,000, and then also miscellaneous. Now miscellaneous is really just to cater for things. It's to cater for things like, for example, you don't hear us counting the veranda. Okay. Also, maybe changing preferences of materials. Also, there is some little stone pitching that you might need to do there at the bottom of the walls, and also things that you hadn't earlier calculated. So you're putting miscellaneous at 5 million. So that brings all the total of all materials to 103 million. 103 million. Okay. Then, so remember, all these we've not been including transportation of all these materials to the site. So you find that if we consider 5% transportation of these materials and delivering them to site, of course this really delivering them to site, of course this really depends on it depends on where your site is actually located and who is actually supplying you the materials. So after adding transportation, it brings our total to 109 million. Okay. So then we add labor. Labor usually ranges between 20% and 30%. So we consider the middle ground here, which is 25%. And that brings our total to 135 million. Now remember, labor, though we considered 25%, it really depends on the engineer or the building contractor that you decide to hire to do for you the building works. Sometimes when you're procuring all these services all at once, you might get a discount. But if you decide to do it in bits, the labor might actually even shoot beyond 30%. But basically, that's what it should be. So that's the total 135 million. We've not included wardrobes. You notice that we didn't include the costs of landscaping, doing the pavers, clearing the compound, planting things here and there, and of course we also did not include the cost of building the boundary wall, because the boundary wall depends really on the size of your plot. And of course all this is based on the assumption that your land is generally flat. It's not a hilly area that is going to give a lot of complications to the people who are building, or that is not going to give a lot of demand on materials, And of course, you also make an assumption that you're not building in a swamp. The foundation that you're going to build in a swamp is going to be much more expensive than what we've discussed here. Okay. So guys, that was it. So if you are there thinking it's expensive to build a storeyed house, you can gauge from this and see whether it's actually expensive or it's much cheaper than you thought it was. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Stay blessed. I'm Darwin.